What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Brandon Elliott. Today, I want to cover all the nitty gritty, the nasty stuff, the learning curves, and the tips that I have for you guys today. Stuff that I've experienced on this this current project that we're still in, and it's nothing horrible. We're definitely blessed in many ways, but there's no expert level around my name when it comes down to, managing contractors, subs, and at the end of the day, just the whole process of going from beginning to end of any type of project. There's always learning curves. There's always something new that we're going into because not every project's going to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to be very blunt with you, very transparent, and hopefully be able to deliver some good value for you guys if you are, getting into your next flip or rental or regardless, any type of remodel that you're jumping into currently or in the near future, and hopefully save you a bunch of time. And even in this episode, I'm going to be showing and expressing how I even break my own damn rules, practice what you preach. I've even broken some of these rules, and it wasn't a huge smack to the face. It was a very light one. However, you really want to write down on a piece of paper exactly what your non-negotiables are, right? And that will save you a lot of time. But without further ado, let's just dive into it. So tips and learning lessons along the way. That's what we're going to call this one. So first off, we're going to talk about general contractor, so GC versus subcontractors. So if you're not familiar, a general contractor, a GC, you're dealing one-on-one with them for the most part, and then they hire out all of the subs, or they have a team of people that work for them, and they pay whatever, the value is of those traits. However, they add an extra little tax onto it. They manage the project, they middleman it, they make sure that from beginning to end gets done, and you don't need to worry about dealing with all of these subcontractors. You're really just directly dealing with the one point of contact, your GC. Let's talk about the pros and cons about them versus subcontractors. Subcontractors, if you don't know, that's basically you're hiring out just that one particular subcontractor that does just that one particular trade. So they could be a plumber or electrician or a floor guy, a painter, a mud guy, a drywall guy. The list goes on, concrete, framing, So all of these things, they're not, that famous saying, a jack of all trades. You don't necessarily want that handyman guy that does a little bit of everything. Although it may be nice and that they have some experience in all levels, it's best to really find one particular trade, one particular sub that does, excellent at that one particular thing. They're usually faster, more particular about what needs to be done, what they can cut corners on, and so forth, and you can get the best quality of the work done, and hopefully save yourself a penny or two if you can negotiate that fast, quick results with quality. So like we just spoke about, realistically, what's awesome about subs is that it's cheaper. However, there is more time involved. So on this particular project, the project is a duplex. We're adding some extra bedrooms, some extra bathrooms within the current square footage, which is awesome. Just maximizing what is already there in the floor plan. And then we're adding 2 ADUs in the back, so accessory dwelling units in the back that will be, ground up construction of 3-bedroom, 1 baths, both of them in the back. So it's going to go from a 2-unit complex to a 4-unit complex on the same parcel. which is awesome. And another learning curve is, and we knew about this before purchasing by doing our due diligence, but during COVID, permits usually take a long time to start off with, prior to COVID here in San Diego. But during COVID, man, it's a little bit of a process with the time frame, and we're still very fresh into, we just purchased and closed technically on the property, I believe December 3rd. So we're still rocking and rolling. It's just been a month and a half into it, and we're almost done on the duplex, which is great. But getting the permits for all the other stuff involved, as well as the 2 ADUs in the back, it takes some time. So a lot of fun there. However, when it comes down to hiring a general contractor versus getting all types of subs and managing that, being the project manager of the project itself, on our last project and many projects before this, I've always got a general contractor, and I still need to manage and oversee the general contractor to make sure that they're doing everything properly. I'm meeting with one contact and make sure that they get everything done on the project, right? And that's frustrating enough. Just being truthful, and making sure that there's transparency, communication, that money's getting paid when it needs to, and materials they have, when it's needed, and that, I'm not getting beat up on the price, but the quality is getting done and so forth, to be able to get the job done from, beginning to end. However, this new project, it's literally 5 minutes away from where I actually live, which is awesome. It's over in Old Town. I'm in Linda Vista, right around the corner. So I figured, what, the last project we had, the fourplex over in North Park, we had some transparency issues towards the end. The project came out great. However, our normal general contractor started having some family issues that he was bringing to the project, and it just started getting a little out of control, and we weren't happy as much as we'd like to be. At the end of the day, we felt like we paid more than we should have. It took longer. There was some, problems along the way. Communication was starting to fall apart, and that was very frustrating. So instead, on this new project, we were like, you know what? We have some of the crew, and even if we don't, we're not going to go back to that. We're going to go and try to start over here, and maybe because we're on a tight budget and a lot needs to be done, why don't we save a couple bucks by subbing it out with a bunch of subs? Now, I wouldn't recommend this to somebody just getting started, because you really need to know beginning to end what this looks like, the whole process. You don't want to start with painting if you didn't demo, right? Or jump into electrical or plumbing first, right? So let's talk about that just for a quick second. And just to wrap up, the general contractor versus subs. At the end of the day, subs, it's going to be cheaper, but it is going to be more time involved. It's going to be, you could have a bunch of different subs that don't actually have, they're not used to working together, so therefore they can get frustrated at each other. When it comes down to general contractors, they might already have a team together. They might love following, the drywall, or the mud guy might love following the guy that puts up the drywall, because he does it very seamlessly, and the drywall guy doesn't need to put that much time and effort into doing the mud, so it can go by quicker. So that can be very helpful. It is more expensive, however. Less time involved, though, and time is your biggest asset. Like, let's not forget that. And I'm very frustrated that I personally didn't get a general contractor, or at the very least a project manager, because it is taking a bunch of my time. I'm going to the property about 2-3 times a day, and that can be very time consuming, very frustrating. And also we've had some other learning curves, but nevertheless, let's go into this next phase here and break down exactly from beginning to end what it looks like to break down in order which trade to pick first, because we've actually had this question come up a lot privately, reaching out to me. How do I know which trade to use first? So it's very simple once you do it a few times. Like once you actually deal with contractors and realize the step-by-step process, then you'll start understanding this. But ask a lot of questions first and foremost. Second, walk these properties with contractors and ask them what they would do first. And after you do it enough times with certain people, or just go through the projects enough times, then you're going to learn this as well. But you really need to know this before you actually go into, subbing out a whole project on your own, doing the own property management, acting as if you're your own general contractor, right? So first and foremost, we're going to demo. You got to demo first. And when I say demo, I mean like demo everything. I'm at fault on not being crystal clear with my demo crew originally on certain things that needed to be demoed. Like we were just demoing this past week, a month and a half in, on some small things here and there that didn't need, like this should have already been done day one. That's what's very frustrating about this, because I've already paid the demo guys and they picked up and they're gone. They were great, but they knocked out about 97, 98% of it. And there's still a couple things left that needed to be done. And if we would have known, or just been on top of it, very crystal clear of exactly what beginning to end looks like for the whole project, then all of this stuff would have been very clear. We could have went in with spray paint, sprayed a couple things, and everybody would have known very clearly what needed to be taken out. So that's enough of my rant on that. But so from beginning to end, demo everything. And then after everything is demoed, get it off of the site first off. Like you don't want to have trash everywhere. Make sure it's a clean, just a clean environment. Otherwise, you're going to get some contractors that are going to be pissed off, some subs, some workers that are going to be pissed off. And then it just makes an unfriendly type of environment, very trashy. It's unorganized. You don't know where certain things are. You could be wasting money. You could be losing money. You could be sweeping up eventually, or throwing good quality stuff that shouldn't be in trash. And also, if a bunch of the other guys there see how everybody else is treating the place and it is dumpy, it is trashy, then what do you think they're going to do? Like when you go into a public bathroom, if it's all disgusting and nasty, you're not going to treat it very well either. So just be mindful of that. When you go into a restroom that is very clean, very nice, maybe it's yours, then you take ownership, pride in it, and you're going to take care of it and clean it up, right? I know that's a disgusting example, but it is what it is. So demo first, get everything, make sure everything's cleaned, get it off the site, take it to the dump. Next is electrical and plumbing. So electrical and plumbing is very important. I would say probably plumbing first, then electrical. And plumbing goes into obviously all rough. This is all rough plumbing, and there's two stages. There's rough, and then there's finish. Finish is going to be, the finishing fixtures, outlets, plugs. You don't want to do that before painting, right? So the first phase is always going to be rough, and you do plumbing first. There's going to be gas, and there's going to be electric that might be needed. So plumbing and water, sewage, all this stuff needs to, be checked, make sure that it's in good shape. If not, replace it, dig it up, crawl underneath the house, like all this stuff. I like to clean out everything underneath the house as well. Some properties they've been storing a bunch of crap underneath there for a long time. And I like to just make sure that all the chaos, all the mess, all the hidden stuff behind the sheets are like all taken out and exposed, and just get it off the property, right? So demo, clean up after yourself, and then plumbing, electrical. I like to rewire all new wires throughout the whole house. That can end up causing a bunch of holes in the drywall. So then you got to be mindful of, as we're going through the drywall, also keep in mind, if you're doing any type of framing, then you want to make sure that the framing is done during or before you start going through electrical stuff. Like if you're adding extra bedrooms or rooms, keep in mind, this is a whole different beast then. This isn't a basic remodel. This is, ground up construction. So that's what we had to do, a portion of ground up construction on this duplex, because there was a back room, almost like a crawl space, except there was plenty livable area. It's just there was a ton of dirt in there. So we dug up all the dirt. We realized that the footing, which is around the outside, it's the foundation, it stopped. So we had, as we're digging out, so it didn't crack and like the house fall down, we had to do what is called pins, create pins, which is 3 feet wide, about 4 to 5 feet deep underneath where the footing end, like where it stopped, the foundation. And then we would dig about 18 inches underneath the foundation, start putting rebar and then concrete. We did 6 pins in total, and we had to do 4 and make them solidified solid before we could dig out the remaining, to make sure that everything was solid and set up. After the other 2 were done, making it all 6 in total, then started doing the whole footing, all new footing all the way around. And then after that, then we were able to do the slab. But before we did the slab, we realized we had to do the plumbing because we're putting an extra bathroom there. So we put the plumbing, then the slab, and then now we can get to drywall, So that was rough plumbing. Now we can get to drywall. I'm sorry, not drywall, framing all the wood. But before we do that, before we actually start doing the framing, we have to make sure that it's waterproof down there. So they're actually going to do what's called almost like a tar base. So 5-gallon, buckets and of something similar to a tar that they're going to paint onto all of the footing, the concrete around it. And then therefore we can start doing the framing of all of the 2 new bedrooms and a master bathroom. And then we can get the electrical and plumbing extended, rough wise. After that, they're going to put up drywall. Once we get the drywall in, we can either, in some areas and in some places out here, they don't. Other times we do. It depends on the weather and how soundproof you want it. But as you're putting in the drywall, you want to do insulation potentially. So that will keep everything, heated longer or cooled longer. And then soundproof as well, which is very, very nice, especially if you have multiple units, that can be very, very helpful. But then after drywall's up, then you get a different crew, which is basically like mudders or tapers, they call them. So they tape all the areas, and then they, with a certain type of tape, like a mesh tape, and then they can put the mud on there, 20-minute mud, 40-minute mud, whatever, that basically acts like drywall, solidifies, it hardens up, covering all the screws, all the imperfections, all of the cracks in between to make it look like it's a seamless wall. After that, they're going to sand down and then possibly put another coat. And then after that, same thing, and do a skim coat, like a skip trail. There's orange peel. There's a bunch of different type of finish textures that you want to consider how you want, your end product to look. After that's done, you got to let it dry. On drywall, it dries very quick. We've realized on plaster, which is the old, very thick type of material, that it takes a while to dry. It takes actually a significant amount longer to dry. So just being mindful of all this stuff, because you want to make sure that it's fully dried before you actually get to painting. Next is painting. And then, once everything's painted, then we can jump into flooring. Flooring, many different ways to go about it, but, we're going with something similar to a cork, except it's an eco-friendly, so we don't actually need to glue it down. It's going to be similar to a regular under laminate. And then we will put, and you always want to get about 10% extra of whatever the actual square footage is for any cuts, corners, etc. At that point, after we put our LVP laminate vinyl planks on there, then it's going to look very nice. Obviously, the paint and everything else is all good. It's really starting to come together. But then we'll put the crown molding and the baseboards all on. Touch up paint everywhere that's needed, and then we get into the kitchen. So the kitchen will be in place, countertops, bathrooms you can jump into right after the electrical and plumbing is done and painting. Otherwise, you can just jump into it and then do painting next, because they're small rooms. So because flooring and tile in general in the bathroom is normally what you're doing. You're using tile for the most part. So there's many ways to go about this, but these are the different techniques that I like to use, and in that order. And then lastly, you go for the finishing, touches, finishing products. Also, windows, you can do windows and doors. Windows really anytime. However, doors, you really want to make sure doors are done after the drywall guys, after the tapers are done, all the mud, because mud, it will get solid, it will get hard, and it can get flung around everywhere. So you want to make sure all the mud is done, and right before painting or after painting, put up doors, and then, have it painted afterwards. So yeah, those are the step-by-step of what I recommend. Outside, if you're closing off any windows or making a bunch of holes in certain areas on the outside, then figure out what kind of, siding you have. A lot in San Diego is stucco. But if you have anything else, then just be mindful of that. If you want to change, the roof, then you can do that anytime, really. So there's a bunch of different ways, different strategies, but that's a rough idea of what you should keep in mind when you are walking into a project. And just be very clear, like, think about this stuff, write it down from beginning to end, what that looks like, what is needed. And then also, for the best of the best communication and transparency, ask for those warm recommendations, like good recommendations, but also figure out who likes to follow each other. Because if the mud guy has to go right after a really bad drywall setter and they're doing a bunch of small patches in one little corner instead of doing one whole new sheet of drywall, and they just put it with a bunch of gaps and everything else, then it could be very frustrating for the guy following him, right? So just make sure that everybody's in the same, and that they link up, and that you get really good quality for each one, and that you get recommendations from these people, right? So that's just a quick little breakdown of what to anticipate. And then let's dive into this next section of another tip and learning lesson that I personally, I'm very disappointed in myself for falling into this trap. But check this out. Ready? I'm a firm believer of using your credit card for everything, right? Use your credit card, rack up those points, get that security. Am I right? Like, I always mention this, and I'm very notorious for using, contractors, general contracts, subs that accept credit cards. It's very, it's awesome. And 9 times out of 10, it's worth paying just a little bit extra in the fees if needed. However, you can also negotiate the fees. You can pay through PayPal using your credit card, but still get the protection. There's many different ways to be able to set this up. Now, I'm kicking myself in the butt right now because I ended up hiring on some taper guys right after the drywall we negotiated a certain price, and they do mud, they do tapering and everything, and we negotiated a good price. However, on the very first day, they started complaining about it, saying that they underbid it and that we were screwing them over, and that, you know, it was really frustrating and everything. And they're the ones that gave me the damn quote. You know, they're the ones that said these numbers. So I just accepted what they gave me. He checked out the property. You know, it's like one of his buddies, though, that came in that wasn't there at the time was giving him a lot of crap during, you know, as they're working. Anywho, so all three of them end up just complaining a bunch, and they're like, you know what, we want to get paid out on a daily basis. You know, like, and they were being just a pain about it. You know, thinking that, like, made it seem like they were scared that we weren't going to pay them, and that they were going to do the job. But regardless, so they asked for a certain amount, and they wanted it in cash. And I don't like doing cash, but they caught me off guard. I was trying to, you know, just moving around on all these different things. And I just, you know, I got frustrated. I was like, fine, I'll give you the cash, you know, and I'll pay you out daily so you guys can shut up, you know. And it came down to, the job was bidded at like $1,600. They needed about 3 to 4 days worth of work. And on the very first day, they did do a good amount of work, but there's still a good amount left, right? They only did 1 day, and they asked for $160 per person. So, you know, it just added up to $480. And then on the next day, they ended up giving me a bunch of excuses why they couldn't come in, you know, stuff that very frustrated me, and gave me just a bunch of runaround excuses and all this nonsense. So, so the learning lesson here is I didn't have a contract. And second, I didn't pay with credit card. Because if they broke their agreement, then I wouldn't have given them $480 when at the end of the day, I only owed a little over $1,000, because they were getting materials that I paid for as well, that they said they would cover and take it out of, you know, the total cost. So very frustrating. Let's just say that. And I owed just about $1,000 left. But it still needed about 3 or 4 days, you know, and that was the tough part, because now I had to get back out there and find more people. So I should have paid at the max maybe $300 for, they worked about 6 hours, and regardless, they broke their word. So that was very frustrating. But don't break your word to yourself, you know, like that was my learning curve, and I have to take responsibility for that, and I'm blessed and thankful that I didn't actually get screwed over. Like, they didn't walk away with a ton of my money. You know, I did pay a little bit extra what I should have potentially, and it's frustrating when somebody gives me their word and then, you know, breaks it and wastes my time. So now I need to get out there and find more people. But nevertheless, you know, there was still a good amount of work that was done that 1 day, and I paid for 1 day for 3 guys a little bit more than I should have, but it's not like, you know, there's still progress during that day, right? So long story short, use credit cards so you can have the protection, you can dispute it. And then secondly, use contracts. No matter how much time it is, whatever it is, just a simple contract would be very beneficial. And just to add on top of that, if you utilize somebody that is a very good, strong, warm recommendation, then typically you're not going to have huge problems. It's still great to have it in contract, but you know, have certain things you want to consider with having in the contract is how people are going to get paid, when they're going to get paid, what kind of quality you expect, how you're going to determine whether the job is done or not, like what type of inspections you're going to give. Who's covering materials, who's, you know, when does it start the job, and when is it anticipated and expected to stop? If it takes longer than that, is there going to be any type of consequences? Is there going to be any bonuses if finished earlier? You know, all these different things can be very, very crucial. Really have a detailed scope of work of what it looks like from, you know, the beginning of their start date to the end start date, in what order, how are they going to accomplish the task needed, and the materials that are going to be used so that there aren't any shortcuts. You know, you want to be clear on all this stuff in the contract if you're going to use one. And like I said, use one so you don't end up, getting screwed over or hurting yourself. Obviously, a contract can only go so far. A man's shake, a woman's shake, and just respect for yourself, as well as not paying upfront for things, will save you a ton of headache, a ton of time, and using warm referrals will help save a lot of that as well. But yeah, if like I said, a contract can only go so far. So if they don't do the work, it's not like a legal amazing contract and like drafted up by a lawyer. And even if it was, what are you going to do? You're going to waste all the time, the energy to go sue somebody. If it's a good amount of money, then yes, you 100% should. But if it's something smaller, and never pay up front. I never ever give anybody any type of big amounts or anything up front, unless they want it on a credit card, because I can always get it back. But I still rarely ever do that just because it's not needed. And I'll pay for materials up front, and then, I'll pay them the labor cost afterwards. I personally like to go that route, but you got to keep an eye on all the material lists then too, on the receipts, to make sure that they're not getting extra, or they're not wasting things, or they're not taking extra things to the side and then returning them for a gift card or cash later on, because all these things can happen, right? And when they're not paying for it, then people care less. So you just want to be mindful of all these things. So these are my tips and tricks for all the lessons learning, all the learning curves that I'm having on this particular project. There's been a good amount. We're still getting amazing progress. Something that a lot of other people that I've heard in the past giving way too much money up front. There's no need to ever give any type of money up front. If anybody ever asks you for money up front, just start running, just laugh at them, because that's a lot of that is going to be more of a joke, unless it is a general contractor and they start trying to get ahead of the game. I personally just don't like going at it that way, and there's a lot of issues that can come about from that. So I've made those mistakes in the past, and that's why I've learned my lesson. And even though I've made similar mistakes on this particular project, paying cash when I should have paid credit card, they caught me off surprise. Looking back now, I realized they were just playing me on a certain game. There was still progress made that day. It was very frustrating, but it is small amounts of money, and there was still progress made, right? They're still working. So that's why it kind of caught me off guard. But nevertheless, use your credit cards, have contracts, understand from beginning to end what the deal looks like, what the project looks like, and how to be able to really accomplish it in order, so that there's no time wasted. There's, the trades are following each other in a good manner, and ready and prepared for the next task. Okay, guys? So hope you guys all took notes on this and got value from it. If you have any questions at all, put in the comments below. Reach out to me privately. You can do so at Instagram, Brandon Elliott Investments. Otherwise, facebook.com /Brandon Elliott Investor. You can always find me also at creditcounselelite.com. That's our online educational platform for anything related to credit. If you want to learn how to fix your own credit, get educated on how the creditors, banks, lenders are judging you, how to play the game, how to manipulate the game and have it on your side, real life Monopoly, how to be able to build up your credit, be able to get your FICO up to 800 FICO score in less than 30 days, how to be able to build up business credit, get up to several six figures, up to seven figures, in fact, within a year or so. And also just being able to leverage it properly, how to be able to make money from your credit. That's what we love to teach. That's what we love to show. And we can show you how to fix your own credit as well, or do it for you with our company, creditrepairmobile.com. So reach out to us if you have any questions whatsoever. We'd love to be that resource. We'd love to be that connection to be able to put the missing pieces together for you, help you out, be able to take that financial literacy, that financial future to the next level for you and your family. The feeling that you'll have afterwards is literally tremendous. It's night and day. We've done it for hundreds upon hundreds of students, and we're looking to improve the next student, which could be you. So reach out, apply if you're interested, and have that connection with one of our groups. All right, guys, we will see you on the next podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you get the newest notification for the new podcast every single Monday, and then leave a review. Let us know what you guys think about it. If you have any feedback for me, like I said, reach out. I'd love to connect with each and every one of you guys. But till next time, we will see you on the very next episode. God bless.